I do want to shift and ask you about the cosmic, kind of like shifts and predictions of the next year, because I think it's very interesting. First of all, 2025 is a very interesting year. What can you say about the rest of 2025 and maybe even next year?
Yeah, well, we name every year we give the year a name, a theme. And we named 2025 the year of the Divine Pendulum for a couple of reasons. And we're in the middle of the pendulum swing right now. Three of the outer planets, the very slow moving ones that stay in a sign for a very long time, are making changes this year in 2025. They already moved into a new sign, one they haven't been in for a long time, for part of the year. And then in a little while, they're going to swing back. So one of those planets is Saturn, which changes signs every 3 years. It began the year in Pisces. It was in Pisces since March of 2023, but it moved into Aries at the end of May. And it hasn't been in Aries for 30 years, basically. So that really has brought this like kind of a sort of authoritative structure in, and also this willingness to like try new things, but needing to really know the rules of them. So that lasts until September 1st, and then Saturn's going back to Pisces again. So we had this little peak. And then Uranus popped into Gemini July 7th to November 7th. Its last time there was 1941 to 1949. And then it goes back into Taurus at the end of the year, where it was for the last 7 years. And then Neptune, which is a planet of dreams, is now in Aries from March 30th to October 22nd. The last time it was there was during the Civil War, 1862 to 1875. So we get this little sneak preview of that. And then on October 22nd, it goes back to Pisces for one last little bit. So it's like this year and this summer, especially, we're getting this glimpse into longer phases that are going to kick up again in 2026. Saturn goes back into Aries. So basically, the end of January, February, and then into April. Saturn goes back into Aries for a long time. Uranus goes back into Gemini for a long time. And then Neptune goes into Aries for a long time. These new signs, they really hunker down in 2026.
Yeah, Neptune, for example, will be in Aries until 2039 when it goes in next year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like into the 2030s for Uranus and Neptune.
They were in these softer signs. They're finishing these these more passive, soft energies, and then they're moving into like Aries and Gemini, which is like go forward, talk, these very young, playful, innovative signs. But it's like we've had so much new innovation and chaos and disruption this year. Maybe towards the end of the year, it'll settle down a little bit, but I think there's no going back.
2025 is really perfectly situated in the middle of the decade because it is giving us that it's that bridge from, like Tali said, the internal to the external. And we also have, when I last talked to you, Pluto was in Capricorn, and it was in this very intense meetup with Saturn. And now it's in Aquarius for the next 20 years, which it hasn't been since the late 1700s. So which was the time of the Industrial Revolution and a new the new currency named the US dollar at the time. The US Mint was established. And now, and we touched on this as a prediction when I was on last, and it really is coming true. It's like cryptocurrency, AI, all things Aquarian and futuristic and digital are really the transformational forces that are happening in the world between now and 2044. So we really are in uncharted territory, because while these planets have been in these signs in different periods of history, they haven't all been in these signs at once. This is this arrangement of them. So we're moving into this very air sign heavy. For you as an air sign, it could be great, but air is very like technical, cerebral data, like things, no
Yeah.
surprise. It's also community and networks of people. And we're seeing people really gathering with their pods and people who think like them. Air is thinking. So what's in someone's mind? What are they really like? We're looking, it's also social media and everything else. So it's going to be interesting to see how we connect and communicate, evolve. I feel like even the way we're meeting here on Zoom is going to probably seem archaic in a few years, you know?
Oh, wow. Yeah, like with the 3 you mentioned the 3 planets moving into Aries, and you kind of since you understand when the last time they were in Aries, what happened in history, what are the predictions or the themes or the trends that you see happening in the next year then? Like, what are we going into?
One of the biggest ones is Neptune in Aries. Uranus is going into Gemini. And then
Yeah.
Neptune in Aries was a time where, look at that, like the realism movement in art took over from the romanticism. Like people wanted, and I think that's kind of where things are going now. There's like, don't romanticize, AI is really like throwing people off too, as much as it's helping people. But it's like, what is real?
Oh, people want real.
Yeah, there's going to be a move towards that. I also call it like active dreaming as a trend. Neptune's the planet of dreams and Aries is action. So it's like, I have a dream and now I'm going to do something with that. People jumping in to like make stuff happen, like even more innovation, if you can imagine that.
Yeah. And you'll hear a lot of people talking about how Neptune from Pisces to Aries coincided with the start of the Civil War. It did, but it wasn't just the Civil War, it was also the start or like a really important moment in a lot of social movements, from women fighting to vote to abolitionism to, so there was a lot of activism and organized
Yeah, I can see that.
marginalized groups of people. And we're seeing that happen now again already. Uranus in Gemini in the mid 40s was the atomic age. So, it was a time when the atom bomb was dropped and people were working with a lot of natural kind of elements that maybe they shouldn't have. And you can see that happening again now as the wars and things that have broken out are often about fighting over resources and minerals and that kind of thing again.
While there is a sort of realism, it's also like, what is real? Like, what do we consider real? Like, when you have Gemini, Uranus, a planet of innovation in Gemini, it's like cloning and, 3D printing things that we've never, been able to gene splicing. I mean, like, there's so many.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna have some wacky, crazy yes, very sci-fi.
I feel like we're in really new terrain and it's not like something we've been through in a long time, if ever. And so this is an uncomfortable year because it's like, I don't know what to reference from the past so much. I'm like, I have never been through something quite like this.
It's like a new formula, a new recipe.
Like, wow, this is a time when we can say the world is really, really changing so fast. My hope is that, and what I'm noticing is because you see the rise of plant medicine and meditation and all these other things too. It's like hopefully human consciousness will expand quicker and in proportion to the technology expansion too, to keep up. But it's getting kind of hard to keep up with this human thing, you know?
I hope so too. What advice do you have for everyday people on navigating and kind of bracing ourselves for all the change? Because I think some people are not ready.
No, I don't think we are.
Why we call the year the Divine Pendulum. So the lunar nodes are in Virgo and Pisces for the rest of this year and halfway into next year. And then Jupiter, which shows how we expand, is in empathic Cancer. So I really think it's like remembering also that we have a rich inner life, leaning into spirituality. I think the
Mm.
technology and man-made energy of this year is also making people want to go back to more analog, Virgo South Node, like rooting in nature. And then Pisces North are like meditation, spirituality, plant medicine, psychology, compassion. So, like,
Mm.
there's one thing that, I mean, people are using AI as their therapists, but the human spirit that you get from that analog, sharing of actual space and time with people is not something that I think can be replaced. And I think we're going to find more value in those types of more intentional gatherings with other people.
Yeah, and I think people are gonna really communally find ways. I mean, a lot of people have quit certain social media platforms and everything like that. Like, I think that we may find ways to collectively, like, how do we stay up with the things that we don't wanna miss, the information that we need to stay on top of without letting it take over our lives? I think that's just
Mhm.
2025 really is about, okay, I cannot look at another news story because it's going to make me feel hopeless. And there's a fight for hope, but Aries is like the first sign of the zodiac. So it's like the Fool card in the tarot. It's naively optimistic in a way that ends up really being a superpower. So leaning into Neptune in Aries, Saturn in Aries is like a mature version of that, I think, or like it sounds it's almost like a paradox, but yeah, it's like, how can we not lose childlike wonder, hope, awe, connection, that spark that can only be created when two people meet and are like, ah, you're my people. Like, that cannot be artificially generated.
Wow, I love it. No, it makes so much sense, and I already think people are leaning towards that too, like building real communities, getting off technology as much. Like the trend with the younger kids is like going back to analog everything,
Yeah.
old cameras, and I totally see it.
Yeah.
What do you think about the future of astrology actually? Because we've seen it grow, become so mainstream. I'm wondering, do you have like a vision for where it could go or where you want it to go in the next 10, 20 years?
As we teach our astrology course, we've found that people maybe intellectually, quote unquote, might know astrology, but even people who are in our class who are like, I studied with this academy, they still don't know how to speak astrology. They don't know how to actually bring it out of their minds and headiness and into conversation where it becomes a tool and a contribution to someone else. Psychology in the 1940s, interestingly enough, when Uranus was last in Gemini, was looked at as much like as a pseudoscience, the way astrology has been. And it was looked down on in that way. And now we all understand what a trauma informed matter is, or like, I feel like that's been super helpful. That's why I think we're so evolved in so many ways, because we've had access to those self-awareness and human potential and psychological tools our entire lives if we were born in, from like the 70s on. So I think astrology may become like that too.
Yeah, and we'd love for, we're already working with organizations, teams, women in business groups, company divisions to help them use the IM system to foster and facilitate like better ways of working together and unity and just playing to people's strengths and their strengths as a team. So one of our things that we love doing and want to continue doing is like creating that harmonizing energy in groups with astrology, because once you understand the uniqueness of someone's chart and their IM system, you you can celebrate things about them that maybe drove you crazy before, or understand at least understand
Yeah.
why they're doing the thing they're doing.
Yeah, we call astrology part of spiritual technology. That's kind of the term that we've adopted
Oh,
for it.
cool.
Yeah, we all need to understand spiritual technology as much as computer driven and generated technology.
I totally see that as the future. And I love how you made the comparison of how psychology was very pseudoscience and no one took it seriously to where we are now. I could see that for astrology because there's so much you can gain from understanding the system. It's just such a powerful tool that can help all of us live better lives. So why not?
Why
Right?
not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.